This is an ABC News special. In a week of unprecedented disruption, the wait is over. The person a president could rely on most takes center stage. Mike Pence.
In this election, it's not so much whether America will be more conservative or more liberal, more Republican or more Democrat. The choice in this election is whether America remains America.
Kamala Harris.
The constant chaos leaves us adrift. The incompetence makes us feel afraid. The callousness makes us feel alone. And here's the thing, we can do better.
The vice presidential debate, live from the University of Utah in Salt Lake City and ABC News election headquarters. Now reporting chief anchor George Stephanopoulos.
And welcome back to our special coverage of the race for the White House. Tonight's vice presidential debate now just moments away. That is the scene at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City, where Vice President Mike Pence, Senator Kamala Harris are going to take a stage retrofitted with plexiglass shields to protect against COVID. Everyone not on stage will be wearing a mask. The moderator, you see her there, Susan Page, will direct 9 10-minute segments on topics of her choosing. Only she knows what they are. And despite what happened in last week's debate, no new rules have been put in place to keep things in order. Our correspondents Mary Bruce and Rachel Scott are inside the hall. And Mary, the Biden campaign insisted on these new COVID protections. We can expect that Senator Harris, a former prosecutor, is going to put Mike Pence's record as head of the coronavirus task force on the stand. We heard that from her chief of staff just moments ago.
George, Kamala Harris's goal here tonight is to put Mike Pence, the head of the coronavirus task force, on defense. She is known for those fierce cross-examinations, those feisty exchanges during congressional hearings. And tonight she's going to try to argue the case that this administration is failing the American people in responding to this crisis. I'm told not to expect her to spend a lot of time fact-checking. Aides say her aim here is not to eviscerate Mike Pence, but to instead speak directly to the American people about how a Biden-Harris White House would be leading differently in this moment. This is a national stage like she has never been on before, and tonight she is going to be making history here. The first black woman, the first Indian American to ever debate for vice president. Regardless of politics, George, this is a huge moment for women, especially for young girls across this country.
And we will see how she plays on that tonight. Rachel Scott, let me bring you in as well. Mike Pence has done this before 4 years ago against Tim Kaine, did pretty well 4 years ago, has a very different job tonight.
The fact of the matter is, George, this is not 2016, and right now the country is up against an unprecedented pandemic. And Vice President Mike Pence is the head of the coronavirus task force, so he will be put on defense tonight. He will have to defend the administration's handling of this pandemic. I'm told that he will largely focus on recovery, talk about jobs, talk about the economy bouncing back. But the reality here is that 26 million Americans are out of a job, and he will be facing some tough questions on that front, George.
Right, and the president has gone back and forth on the stimulus, the economic relief package over the last 24 hours. That is the stage right there. Moderator Susan Page will be speaking in just a few moments, outlining her goals for the debate, talking about the rules that she will be laying out as well. Everyone else in that hall wearing a mask tonight, unlike what we saw in Cleveland last week. Here's Susan Page.
My message to the Democrat candidate for vice president, I'll see you in Salt Lake City.
Vice President Mike Pence.
We have a chance to choose a better future.
Senator Kamala Harris.
He failed to protect the American people.
President Donald Trump's actions saved untold American lives.
We are here fighting for the soul of our nation.
The choice in this election is whether America remains America.
They know when we vote, things change.
It's on.
The Vice Presidential Debate.
Good evening. I'm Nora O'Donnell in the nation's capital with John Dickerson and Gayle King, and we are moments away from the one and only vice presidential debate. You are looking at live pictures from inside the debate hall in Salt Lake City. Let's talk about the state of the race. There is new polling that shows Joe Biden expanding his national lead. And in the battlegrounds, Biden has a sizable lead in Pennsylvania, ahead in Iowa and Wisconsin, and tied with President Trump in Ohio. Vice President Mike Pence and Democratic Senator Kamala Harris arrived a short time ago, and this could be the most consequential vice presidential debate ever. A reminder, both candidates at the top of the ticket would be the oldest president in history.
President Trump, as you know, who is being treated for coronavirus and potentially still contagious, was in the Oval Office today, just days after being released from the hospital. Pence and Harris have both tested negative, and even before they take the stage, there is a clear divide literally between them. They will be separated by plexiglass and seated 12 feet apart instead of the normal 6. The Commission on Presidential Debate says everyone besides Pence, Harris, and the moderator, that's Susan Page, must wear a mask, and this time they are very serious.
Now, no one expects a repeat of the free-for-all that we witnessed at the presidential debate. It's not in the nature of either candidate. The vice president has done this once before. Senator Harris has not. But the first black and Asian American woman to run for vice president is a former prosecutor, and she delivered pointed attacks on Joe Biden at the Democrats' early debates.
This is going to be quite a debate ahead. There's no doubt about it. Let's bring in CBS's Nicole Killian. She is inside the debate hall in Salt Lake City and has been talking to representatives from each campaign. Good evening, Nicole.
Good evening to you, Nora. Senator Harris has been here for days preparing with close aides. Her chief of staff tells me that her main goal tonight is to speak directly to the American people and contrast what the Biden campaign would do compared to the current administration. Expect her to use her prosecutor chops to go after the vice president, especially on the pandemic. Don't forget, it was her team that insisted on these plexiglass barriers.
All right, Nicole Killian, thank you. Also want to bring in CBS's Paula Reed. She is quarantining at home after she was potentially exposed to COVID while covering the White House. Good to see you, Paula, and tell us what you know about the Trump-Pence campaign.
Good evening, Nora. Well, CBS News has learned that the vice president has participated in 3 90-minute sessions ahead of tonight. He's worked along with former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, who has played the role of Senator Harris. Now, these sessions have focused quite a bit on how to defend the administration's handling of coronavirus. The vice president, of course, heads up the task force, but most voters, they do not think it's gone very well. Nora?
All right, Paula Reed, thank you. The debate is about to begin, and no doubt coronavirus will be at the center. Let's bring in the moderator.
From the University of Utah in Salt Lake City, welcome to the first and only vice presidential debate of 2020.
From NBC News, the vice presidential debate. Here are Lester Holt and Savannah Guthrie.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our coverage of the 2020 vice presidential debate. Republican incumbent Mike Pence and Democratic challenger Kamala Harris facing off in their sole matchup, with the election now just 27 days away.
And a lot has happened in the 8 days since the last debate, very contentious presidential debate. President Trump, the First Lady, and many top aides have now tested positive for the coronavirus. The president was hospitalized for several days, so the pandemic is certain to be center stage tonight.
And that's going to be evident on the stage itself at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City, where plexiglass barriers have been installed between the candidates as an added safety measure.
Tonight's moderator is USA Today Washington Bureau Chief Susan Page. The debate commission says she will not be responsible for fact-checking the candidates, but our team of correspondents and analysts are standing by. And for real-time fact-checking, you can go to NBCnews.com. So let's get it started. NBC's Jeff Bennett inside the debate hall tonight in Salt Lake City, Utah. Jeff, what are you hearing from the campaigns?
Hey, Savannah, good evening. It is impossible to overstate the degree to which the coronavirus pandemic has transformed this vice presidential debate, starting with President Trump recovering from the virus at the White House. No vice president has ever debated while a president is known to be ill. And of course, the pandemic also stretches to the stage behind me. You've got the 12 feet of space between the candidates, the plexiglass partitions. And when it comes to what we might expect the candidates themselves to say tonight, I'm told by a Biden campaign official that they don't necessarily expect Senator Harris to spar with Mike Pence, that her goal is to aim higher, to prosecute the case against President Trump as she sees it, and to lay out a contrasting vision for America. Vice President Mike Pence's goal, I'm told, is to help the Trump campaign, one of his goals anyway, is to help the Trump campaign gain ground, both with those key groups of voters and in those battleground states where President Trump right now is underperforming. But look, in Senator Harris and in the vice president, you have two seasoned, skilled debaters, two longtime public servants. This should be a very substantive debate.
All right, Jeff, thanks. Let's turn to NBC News political director and moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. Chuck, Mike Pence may have a tough hill to climb tonight.
He does. Look, I do think this debate will be more polite, which I think everybody watching will appreciate that. But yes, I think the vice president has a tougher hill to climb than he already had. Number one, forget last week's debate. How about everything that has happened in the last 48 hours from the president's diagnosis? He's the head of the task force, and the president walked away from relief talks. I don't know how he can get off of the virus. That's his challenge tonight.
But let me turn to NBC's senior Washington correspondent Andrea Mitchell for the flip side of that, which is, yes, Mike Pence is the head of the task force, which means he knows this issue inside and out. If anyone can defend the case for the administration, this is the one who can do it.
Except that he is the head of the task force, which has been so widely criticized for its conduct for months and months. So I think he will be on the defensive. He's a very experienced debater, a former talk show host, and he'll be polite in going after Harris as well as Joe Biden.
They are both skilled debaters, as we said, and this debate is about to get underway. Let's turn it over to tonight's moderator, Susan Page.
Good evening.